young person we worked with went on to education, employment, or training. So actually the success rate at the age of 16 of young people leaving us meant that everybody had a pathway into adulthood. And I think what I want to try and do today is to draw on some of the ideas that we found as we are working with families and young people, and try to think about how that applies to the workplace, but also to think about the project, which I will find out more about as we go through today, is one element. I think another key element for greater success is making sure employers and workplaces adapt their environments and their approaches, so we have both elements feeding in. Does that make sense to people? So what I've tried to do is draw on some things I think that are pretty common, that come up a lot in the work where I'm very lucky to work with young people and families all over the world. And I think one of the key things is this idea that it's a very complex language environment that we work in. Okay, so I want to use a quick example, if I may, from a colleague and good friend of mine who I think some of you know, Peter Van Meulen, who is obviously a local, and he talks a lot about this idea of context blindness and in-moment decision making. And in essence, the example that I like that Peter uses, if you're teaching somebody how to cross the road and there's the red person on the light, you press the button and you say, when it's green, you cross the road. Are we all happy? Yeah. And then if it's I'm walking across the road and then it turns red at the end, I probably just rush on and finish my journey because I think, you know, it's gone red, but I'll still make it. And similarly, if I take one pace and it goes red, I might come back and think, I'll wait and press the button. I had to do that yesterday in a very big crossroads when I was walking in the rain to the hotel, so I know about this. Now, actually, this happens a lot in schools, but particularly in employment as well. Whereas if you told somebody stop on the red person, they're halfway across the road and they stop, and then the person with them starts shouting at them, you can't stop there, you're going to be run over. And it's just verbal instructions from somebody who is very stressed. And guess what happens? It's difficult to cope with. So what I think is really, really important for employers and environments is to reduce in-moment decision-making. So to plan for things and to stick to things. Don't change it in the moment where people are quite stressed anyway. Okay, so somebody coming in employment and they arrive at 8:30 in the morning, and then at 8:30 they say, oh, we're not going to be here today, we're going to go to this coffee bar instead. At the moment they change their mind, stressful. Yeah, so the more we can proactively plan, the more we help people cope with stress. Okay, and also within this as well, sometimes we make adaptations and adjustments for some people, which is perfectly fine. Okay. However, if we don't educate the other employees that sometimes things are a bit different, people may resent those things and say, how come they get to do that when I can't do that? And actually, the reality of, for me, in any setting I've been fortunate to work with, is if we make those adaptations for everybody, it's inclusive, and then you get rid of this idea that some people get something different because everybody gets it. Yeah, and I'm fairly sure a good strategy for autistic individuals who are struggling in a certain place does not harm non-autistic people. So the more we can proactively establish the routines in the environment and our systems, the more we reduce the stress for everyone. And actually, what must it be like if you're that person that wants to join in and know you can, but for whatever reason, the systems and the organization means that you can't. You're marginalized. Or you're just there, just about coping and doing what you need to do. Actually, we want to really give people this sense of belonging. And I would argue this is entirely possible, okay? Entirely possible. Now, part of the brief was sort of talking about the low arousal approach, which actually I think in the short time is a bit difficult to pin down. But in essence, a key element to the low arousal approach, and this is from one of my boss's books, Professor Andy McDonald, The Reflective Journey, is about understanding coping and stress, okay? Now, if you don't understand how stressed you are, it's really difficult to do something about it, yeah? And quite often other people are good at saying, oh, you're a bit stressed, can I help you out? And not realize how stressed they are, yeah? So what we need to do is have a good culture on language about stress and coping. The more we talk about how we reduce stress, and how we put in things to help us cope, this is like a balance, but it's also a solution-focused conversation, okay? So we talk a lot about this idea about transactional stress. If we are in a very busy workplace that is highly stressful, that affects us. Yeah. If we come in and it's calm and consistent, we are in a different place. Okay. This is a very nice, calm environment now, I think. But if somebody comes in highly stressed, it affects others. Yeah. And I think particularly in things like baristas, for example, there will be certain times where it's very busy in that environment. And actually there will be stressful times and less stressful times. So how do we help manage and understand that there's a clear link here between the environmental and physiological events and other people? So I suppose the way I look at it is that we shouldn't be trying to force an autistic individual to change to fit. We should look at the environment and the people to allow the individual to flourish. And I think this is the dynamic in conjunction with the VR headsets, I think, which could make it very, very powerful as a tool. But obviously, I'm looking forward to hearing more about this as we go forward. So our individual coping responses determine how we adapt. It is impossible to have a stress-free existence, but you can do stuff to reduce some of the challenges. So like coming from the hotel here today, I knew that it was about 7 minutes walk, but I left 15 minutes to walk here and was here at 8:20 before I leave. Now, this is fine because then I can be reassured everything's working.